Microsoft embraced AI in 2024 in other ways. It seems, though, that their whole concept of the AI PC might be amiss. They worked with OpenAI to continue to expand the capabilities of ChatGPT, but their implementation of AI on their own hardware seems to kind of have fallen flat. The elephant in the room came courtesy of CoPilot Recall. Tom, let us recall what Copilot is and why it's such a dog.
Well, I think the elephant in the room is an apt metaphor because of that whole memory thing, but hold that thought. The first big win was back in March because we found out that Mustafa Suleiman was leaving DeepMind and he was going over to Microsoft to basically run Copilot, right? That's what Microsoft needed. They needed someone with AI expertise to come over and basically take that over. And he wasn't the only one either. You know how it is when one of the executives goes, most of the rest of them go with it. And so everyone kind of looked around like, good. Somebody with drive and direction to help Satya Nadella figure out what's going on. And then back in May, we got the first look at these Copilot PCs. And what were we hearing about? We were hearing about the fact that they ran Qualcomm NPUs and they had all of this intelligence that was going to be, groundbreaking, right? And we've been hearing that all year. Every desktop, laptop, consumer focused system manufacturer was telling us how they're going to be adding all these functions for, I don't know, automatic mail categorization and art generation and writing help, and nobody cared. You know what they focused on? Copilot Recall. For those of you who don't remember, maybe your memory isn't as good and you didn't recall what they did. It was basically a system that would take screenshots of what your PC was doing and save them to well, at the time we didn't know it, but it was an encrypted section of your hard drive. And basically, if you ever forgot what you were working on, you could ask Recall, and Recall would show you what you were doing so you could remember it. Now, for my grandmother, not a bad idea, right? Like, I don't know, you're in the middle of writing something and the power goes out, and then Recall's like, hey, here's what I remember. So it's kind of like advanced autosave. Yeah, you know that there are problems with autosave, right? Like autosaving different versions of documents, and then hackers can get in, or not even hackers, let's just say security researchers can get in and pull out what the original text was when autosave did it. Yeah, guess who went completely crazy for this Recall thing? Security researchers. Oh, and me too. Like, I remember reading this story back in May going, what the hell are you doing, Microsoft? Don't do this to me. Like, I don't want you to record the things on my PC. And not only that, there was no clear way to turn off Recall. Like, I get it. If I wanted to use the image generation stuff, or I wanted to have Microsoft Edge help me kind of tweak the intro to the story, for example, I'm fine with that. I don't want you taking pictures of everything I do on my PC, because somebody will get in there. If a backdoor exists, it will be used. And so it took, let's see here, less than a month. It took 3 weeks for Microsoft to pull Recall from early previews and say, you know what? We're not going to deal with it. We are going to push it away. And then we hear a little bit more about this. We hear about whether or not AI is going to be a huge driver for this refresh cycle. Future Group's own Daniel Newman even talked about how AI was going to be the thing that drives this super consumption cycle for new devices. Because let's be honest, a lot of people have gotten to that point where their systems at home are fast enough for most everything. And so we're just going to push it another year. It's almost like an automobile, right? If the car is doing its job, I'm not going to buy a new one every year or every 2 years or every 5 years just because I want a new car. And so they were hoping that some of these new AI features were going to push that, because obviously you need an NPU to run them, right? So Microsoft comes back in October and they're like, okay, we fixed it this time. Recall is going to work better. It's going to be virtualization based. It's going to be fully encrypted and all this stuff. And wait, you know how the story ends, right? A month later, they pull Recall again because it turns out that they didn't quite have it fixed. And do you want to know the cherry on top of this whole story that we didn't even cover on the rundown? Microsoft announced that Copilot features that required that Qualcomm NPU are now going to be available for Intel and AMD chips. That's right. the hardware requirement of these new Copilot Plus PCs that was going to drive this cycle is now available in preview as a software function for existing technologies. Maybe you can't run it on a 10-year-old chip, but you can run it on a 2-year-old chip. And remember, this is the same company that is still facing backlash for Windows 11 requiring a trusted platform module that is halting people from being able to upgrade, even though the system is pushing the software that you have to upgrade to Windows 11 if you want to be in security support. You're tying it to a piece of hardware. And Microsoft said they were not going to give in on the TPM stuff. But when it comes to AI, which is one of the huge money makers, because they're even finding ways to bundle it into Microsoft subscriptions, well, we'll let you run it on your existing stuff if it just means you'll pay us a little bit more to consume it, because we really need to be on top of this AI wave. And hey, I'll be completely fair about this. Microsoft screwed up with Copilot Recall, but they're still light years ahead of the other companies, because I think it's pretty safe to say at this point that the other major desktop manufacturer, Apple, has had a pretty troubled rollout of Apple Intelligence so far. So the back and forth about one feature of the Copilot stuff, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it's a huge deal, but we're going to continue to be tracking this, because maybe by December 2025, Copilot Recall will finally have been released for real this time.